Hey, what's going on YouTube? And welcome to this week's episode of Ask an Old Mog, where you ask the questions, or sometimes people put questions in comments and things like that, and I try to demonstrate the answer in a visual format and try and talk about, how things work and why things work. And this week is no exception. We actually got some comments in a recent video that I did asking about the differences between do I want to have higher attack or higher killer percentage, or there's another question about one-handed weapons versus two-handed weapons and what the difference really is. And I thought it would be neat to do some number crunching. So I will just warn you in advance, this is a very mathy video. It's even going to have a formula on the screen. So if you get nauseated by something like that, like me, you might want to turn away, but really don't. This is going to be a really fun video because I've got a very special guest with me. And that guest, if you haven't guessed by reading the title yet, is Flip Method. And I brought Flip on for a number of reasons. I'm going to let him introduce himself now, though. Go ahead and say hello, Flip.
Hello, everyone. Flip, I do a lot of content on YouTube, Twitch, host the unofficial anniversaries whenever those happen, do a lot.
Very cool, very cool. And one of my favorite types of content that you do is the ones where you go in and you look at a boss or an event item or something like that where you really want to get this thing, or really go in and easily clear this, but you maybe don't have the units for it. And you're making decisions about do I use this, or do I do this, or do I have a foolproof rotation for how this can work guaranteed no matter what, if you just want to get it done and not worry about perfect scoring. Clash of Wills was the last one that I saw you do really good work on. And so I wanted to bring you in on this one just because I feel min-maxing units and damage and stuff like that might be up your alley and your wheelhouse kind of a thing. So there you are. That's why you're here, and I'm thankful that you're joining us. So let's get over to it. So the question that came up, I'm going to go ahead and pop those up on screen. What's the difference in damage between adding more attack or adding more killers? And then somebody else asked, what's the difference between a one-handed and a two-handed weapon? And here it is. I'm going to pop up some information on the screen. All of this comes from one of my favorite pages on the FFBE wiki, which is the mechanics page. And it shows you all the stuff in the game about where damage and how stuff is calculated. And if you're just looking for physical damage, this is the formula. So I don't know about you, Flip. Are you a math person, or are you not a math person?
I am definitely not a math person. Every time I have to look up this formula.
Oh my gosh, I'm so not a math person. And I actually failed college algebra the first time and I took it. Now that was partly my fault. I took it at 8 a.m. and that was not a good choice. My freshman year, 8 a.m. math was not a good choice, but we did it. So here's the formula. If you're not a math person, I'll go ahead and break it down for you. Everything on the left where it says ATK, which is attack, over defense, that's where it all starts. And as you go, that X, if you're not a math person, is a multiplication symbol. So it multiplies everything on the left by everything on the right. So your attack stat, for example, features in right here. And your killer percentage fits in down here. So if you're just thinking about your attack stat and your modifiers, or your killer percentage, you can see pretty easily, if you're able to read left to right, that the number on the left is going to get multiplied by the number on the right and result in a bigger damage if the number on the right is bigger, right? So I'm just going to throw in a number like 3. If our attack stat was 3 and we squared that, that's 9 divided by the defense, maybe like 2 or something like that, and multiplied that by a 4 at the end. That's going to be bigger than if the 4 was a 1. That's a lot of math, right? But hopefully that didn't fly too far over your head. You slow me down if you need to, Mr. Not a Math Person, just like me. And here's where your weapon-handedness goes. So if you're using a one-handed weapon or a two-handed weapon, that goes right there because the variance of your weapon is calculated in there as well. So again, maybe your weapon variance is more important than your attack stat because it multiplies the damage that you get from your attack stat. Did all that fly over here?
No, I managed to get all of that.
Okay,
I think
good.
it's important to remember for the formula that the defense is the enemy's defense. That's where that does come in. It's
Yes.
not your defense stat.
Yes, I had to modify the formula to make it fit on the page and still be readable. That is our attack versus the enemy's defense. Absolutely. So very important safety tip. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this really quick. Okay, get all these arrows out of here. All right. So let's talk about some actual application of this. I've got Duran here on the left, and you can see, or on the right, I guess. Duran is wearing a two-handed sword. You can see where it says two-handed, and it says Tierfing, and his attack is 2,273, and he's not wearing anything else. No abilities, no nothing. And I went into the training dummy, and I did some damage after some calculations, and I came up with some stuff like this. All right. So base attack 2273 with a two-handed sword, which is a two-handed sword is 150% variance. And using his limit burst, did an average of 36.3 million. So like really, really low, but there's no chaining, there's no imperils, there's nothing like that. He's not like fully built out. And then I added 50% attack, which brought his attack up to 2420. Raised the damage up to 42.2, which is a 15.9% increase. And then I compared that, I took the 50% attack away, and I added killers instead and got 52.1 million, which is a 43.25 increase. So based on that, what are you seeing there as like what's better, attack or killer?
I mean, I'm seeing that the killers is definitely a better stat to run.
Yeah, so, and that kind of runs true with the number, the formula that we looked at, right? So the attack stat would have been on the left and multiplied by everything on the right. There we are. If you get your killers up to 300%, this is just 50%, right? This isn't even like super high attack and super high killers. This is just like a 50% increase to one or the other, and we're getting this. So, just to prove it, I do have some pictures as well. Here was running the damage on Tierfing. Right? And here it was with the attack. And here it was with the killer. So, there's the numbers. The proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember here, though, that if your attack percentage and your killer percentage differ, though, that it might be better to run attack percentage instead of killers.
Can you give any example of that?
If you had like a materia that gives you like, I'll say 80% attack and a materia that gives you like 25% killer, it might be better to run the attack percentage because you're going to get a lot more out of it. So it's not always better to run killers, but if you're getting the same number out of it, the same percentage or even a relatively better percentage, then it's probably better to run killers, but don't just run a terrible killer.
Oh yeah, no. This is like 1 for 1 here. So this is 50% attack or 50% killer. Duran has 0% human killer. So adding this is on the training dummy, adding 50% human killer, versus human 50% attack. Yeah, absolutely. You have to kind of mix and match and play with it. But I'm thinking like, if I'm running out of ability slots and I've either got to choose between, do I want a little more attack or a little more killer? Where am I going to go? You're
definitely going to go for killers.
If assuming you're right, assuming the numbers are the same. So that is that one. And so then the other one that comes up a lot is, and I see this on friend units. If you're setting up your friend units to try and like help people do damage on like King Mog events or Chronicle battles, hint, do that right now because there's a King Mog and a Chronicle battle going on. You definitely want to, gear your units to be helpful to other players. That's kind of the whole point. And the one that I see a lot of is people who have, a unit using a one-handed weapon as a two-handed weapon damage dealer. Like Duran. Duran wants to use a two-handed weapon, but they might equip him with a one-handed weapon. And that's not always good, So let's take a look at that. So doing the same thing, I pulled out 2 random swords that have roughly the same attack. Ferris's sword with my mods that I had on him gave him 2171 attack. That's a one-handed sword, so the variance is 1.15 average. And versus a two-handed sword, the Daybreak, notice that the attack is a little bit different, 2171 versus 2193, but the variance average is significantly different, 1.15 versus 1.5, and the average damage that I got, again, really, really big difference, a 10 million, 11 million damage swing. Ferris's damage, 22.4 versus the Daybreak, 33.5. So, and that's all just, the only difference is, does it say, in fact, it always says I'm equipping it with two hands. Well, if you're only wearing one weapon, it always says two hands, but the weapon itself is designed with higher variance.
So, what is variance, though?
So variance is where the game decides that the final boss is total randomness, and the damage you do is based on a dice roll, basically. No, the variant, every weapon, and I don't have an example of it to pull up on screen right now, but every weapon has a stat that says like, I think it actually says damage variance, where it'll say like 1.15 to 1.25, which is the damage variance for a one-handed sword. Or for a two-handed sword, it's 1.25 to 1.75. So it averages out to be 1.5. And I'm gonna pull the attack modifier or the formula back up on screen to show you where it fits in. Where did I put it? Right here. There we are. It fits in the weapon variance spot, right? Right there. So it is, it's basically multiplying your damage by 1.25 to 1.75 just by equipping a two-handed sword. And it's just another number in the formula that increases your damage. Or if you're using something like fixed dice, decreases your damage.
So every time I hit with that weapon, it could hit for 1 times damage, 1.5 times damage, or 1.25, just depending on my luck.
Yep, just depending on luck, which is why, you see people in Dark Visions, running the boss multiple times, just trying to get the highest possible damage. Because if you're doing damage with 6 units at once, you gotta all have them roll well on that damage variance to get a really good score, which is annoying. It is. But
I agree.
But you can see though, I'm gonna put that back up on the screen. To jump back to it. That it makes a big difference. I mean, this is just average. So the average variance for a one-handed versus a two-handed, and this is just, I ran it several times and just kind of like pulled some numbers that were like kind of in the middle. That's how averages work. And this is, a pretty significant difference just from wearing a two-handed sword, an official two-handed sword versus an official one-handed sword. So I think, it's important to pay attention to that if you're aiming for a really high score. And it gets complicated. Sometimes like you want a sword that has like a killer bonus on it, which we just said was really, really good, but it might be a one-handed sword instead of a two-handed sword. And so you might lose damage based on that. There's lots of numbers to kind of play with in that formula. That said, what are some of your favorite two-handed weapons for a budget?
For budget, my gosh. You're bringing up two-handed weapons on budget.
Yeah, I know. Like, I really like the Tierfing. I really like the Tierfing, but it's limited.
It is. I'll have to get back to you on that. Give me a minute.
Pause. Yep.
Oh, you're just gonna break this out of the video?
No, we're gonna leave it in. I'm just teasing.
Oh,
you.
Great.
No, but seriously though, like two-handed weapons are just they're just by default, gonna deal more damage, and that's why like stuff like the two-handed fist from the Aigain trial, for example, it's gonna be better off than the Tiger Fangs, which is a one-handed fist, even though they're both trial rewards. And the Aigain arm does less damage, technically. But it does more because it's a two-handed weapon.
The two-handed fist that you just named is actually it's one of the best, honestly.
Because it does come with a killer, too. And I think LB fill? Like the percentage rate or something like that? I don't know. It's good. Go get it. We've talked about this.
I actually think I'm gonna bring up for budget. I'm gonna go with what we just got actually, because it was so new I couldn't even think of it. Lionheart Squall's Chronicle weapon actually is STMR. It's two-handed. It's two-handed. It's 180 attack. It's elementless. Yeah, increases LB damage. It's great.
It's so good, so valuable, especially if you're gonna run it on Squall, which you should. I don't think there's ever a reason not to use it on him at this point. You know, especially if you've got a great sword in peril from somewhere, whether it's the limited vision card that was available, or if you happen to have an Esther or a Tyvis or something like that. Good stuff. So yeah,
Dark Lord's also not too bad.
Dark Lord is not bad at all. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's got that 75% Dragon Killer on it and 186 attack.
And it's relatively easy to get. That was like 7-star era bosses, so that's very easy to get these days. Yeah. Cool. So if you've got a Duran, you should use him all the time with a two-handed weapon and boost his killers before his attack. That's what this video takeaway is, right? Excellent. No, the real thing to take away is, you know, you definitely want to check out the mechanics page. It's one of my favorite pages on the whole wiki, and it's full of stuff like this, but it does actually break down and tell you where all these numbers come from. So if you're curious about where damage comes from or how to, you know, it's going to help you build your units, you know, to do the things you want them to do. And it's got breakdowns for like physical damage, magic damage, evocation damage, you know, all the kinds of damage you want to do. Do you have any feedback or anything else you want to add to that part of it?
No, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can affect the damage. You know, imperils, LB damage buffs, all these different modifiers that you can place onto it. But so it's a huge formula. But that webpage does give you all the information you would need to know about where it does fall into that.
Yeah. And the modifier, like, I guess the big takeaway is, like, yes, attack is important. A lot of new units, they max out their attack very easily, so like you don't need to really need to worry about it that much. But the modifiers, like that big lump category at the end, it's everything. It's like LB damage buffs, like you said, field effects, jump damage boost, weapon imperils. There are so many things that just fall in that modifier category. It's got its own section, and those are definitely where you want to focus, because some things stack and some things don't. But you know, if you put all the pieces together, you can get absurdly high damage. Morale is another one. Morale is a modifier. It affects the skill modifier, so that's like on the left, but it's still considered a modifier. So yeah, cool. That's all I've really got for right now. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with me.
I really appreciate being here. I think it's important to just, whenever you're gearing for your units, if you can't cap out on killers, to just kind of go for whatever the best gear that you've got available. Don't worry about trying to hit a cap on something if you just don't have the gear for it. You know, try to hit a cap on something else. So like if you can get better from your LB damage because it's in the modifier section than you can get from your killers, then you know, go there. Yeah,
you definitely want to like pick and choose wisely. But you know, if you're you know, I was working on my Clash of Wills build recently. And like I didn't have the gear to make Lara Croft hit 300 Reaper and human, but I knew, for example, that she had a buff that was going to give her bigger human killer than everybody else was going to get, because it only affected her. So I just lowered her human killer by 50% and boosted her Reaper up to 300, and now I'm doing good damage because it all evens out.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Definitely got to pick and choose, especially if you're on a budget. Like a lot of players, not everybody has, you know, 12 Sky ST Mars. So.
Well, what I also try to do for my budget, or what they're now being branded as poverty runs, is I don't put in any time limited stuff either. And because some people, they just might have not have been playing that week or hadn't started playing yet. And a lot of the gear in the game is time limited, and so you might be missing that one thing.
You might be, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other options, which is a lot of what I try to talk about in my Tuesday videos, is like options for stuff that is available in game. You're absolutely right. But definitely go check out Flip's poverty videos. You can check Flip out on Twitch. You can go check him out on YouTube. It's a lot of fun. He's a fun guy to watch. And I actually really enjoy your Twitch streams because like the detail and the like attention to like, oh, can you get this? Can you not get this? Is this available? What's the best rotation? Like I love the attention to detail that you put into figuring everything out on stream. It's so fun to watch.
Thank you. I love what you do for the community. All these, Ask an Old Mog videos, or just your Tuesday videos. There's like so much that you do.
Well, shucks.
You you help out with the Facebook community. So I really appreciate it. The work you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate having you here. And that's going to be it for this one. So if you've got a question you want to see in next week's video, feel free to drop a comment here or on the Facebook post when this goes over there in just a few minutes. And we'll do everything we can to put together a nice detailed visual video representation of all of that. And yeah, that's it. So for now, go ahead and be good to each other, and good luck in your current Clash of Wills runs, and make sure you're farming the event and setting friend units the right way now that you know how to. Take care. Be good.